Sports Avenue Twisted Podcast. Rob and Rocky talks everything sports.
Welcome to another edition of the Sports Avenue Twisted Podcast. We have a returning guest in here, and she's one of our favorites here, and she covers Braves content, and she's a contributor for Hardcore Braves, and she's Erin on Deck on TikTok, and she also represents the Chop House Tees content as well. So Erin on Deck, welcome back. It's an awesome time to have you on. By the way, your episode's still the second most streams in our podcast. So thanks for coming back.
Oh,
I am dead
that's
serious.
awesome.
Yeah. So
That's
welcome
great
back.
to be back. Yeah.
Yeah, we love having you. I was recently on the Hardcore Braves episode doing the crossover. Well, Rocky was out of town. We had a great time and learned a lot about your team then. So we're excited to have you and learn some more. So
Yeah, I'm
thank you.
excited to be here.
That's awesome. I know, right? And I mean, you couldn't ask a better time to be a Braves fan right now, especially the season that's gone for them.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the start they've had so far. And incredible start. I mean, they have the best record in baseball. And I did have the Braves to win the division, but did you expect the Braves to have this kind of start and being, I mean, runaway favorites right now in the NL East and perhaps the NL?
After 2025, no, absolutely not. My only hope for the beginning of the season was to not start off with a sweep and going 0-7 to start the season. That was my one hope and expectation, and it obviously has exceeded my expectations, and it just keeps going. I'm like waiting for a point where things start to go downhill fast, and it just hasn't gotten there yet. I mean, the last two games were not great, but I don't think they were huge indicators of us going into a like full slump, like losing streak type thing.
But talk about the offense, how it's been clicking on all cylinders this season, even with guys that even have gotten kind of off to slow starts, but you're getting contributing factors from a lot of people. So tell us what's been the biggest factors within your offense producing the way it is.
Yeah, I think the key thing is, and the secret sauce, if you want to say, is that everybody in the lineup is contributing. It may not be consistently, but every single one of them is contributing at some point. And I think that's what makes it different. And a lot of the times it's like the bottom of the lineup guys who are carrying the game. It's not your typical Acuna, Riley, Ozzy, or Matt Olson. Most of the time it's more Jorge Mateo, Mauricio Dubon, sometimes Yaz, like it just depends. And then there's people like Dom Smith, who no one really expected to be as much of a power hitter as he is with us. He comes in these clutch moments and just completely changes the game with one hit. And it's incredible to watch. And I just love the clubhouse chemistry that this team seems to have. And I think what they have going for them right now is really working. And also, I feel like a lot of people don't give as much credit. Obviously, Walt Weiss is getting a lot of credit. He's, in talks for manager of the year, as he should be. But then the coaching staff, we revamped our entire coaching staff for the most part in 2026. And Jeremy Hefner is like a pitching whisperer. And, with people like Bryce Elder, I mean, I know he got advice from Maddox as well. But, Jeremy has contributed to that. And one of his big things is having a variety of pitches in the arsenal and not just sticking to your strongest one. And I think that has also helped a lot with our rotation. There's still work to be done with the rotation, but with the offense performing as it typically does, those kind of things balance out. It all seems to be clicking really well.
Let's talk a bit about Ronald Acuna Jr.'s injury, and he's a supreme talent. I mean, we talk about one of the young talents in today's baseball, and I know he was off to a slow start. He started playing better as he went, but he's been going through some hamstring injuries, and I think he's on the 10-day IL, and it's grade 1. It's the second time he's gone through it. And are you a little bit worried about that injury? And if you believe that once he's back, can he get back to what old Ronald's been?
Yeah, and I have a theory in general on all of this. The first part is I think he overworked himself because he did fall winter baseball and then straight into the World Baseball Classic and spring training and then straight into the regular season. There was no really break time there for him. And I think with his injury risk, he needs to be taking a break. I know that he loves to play, and participating in the World Baseball Classic obviously is a great opportunity. But I think that contributed to both of these injuries, and I feel like he maybe, I'm no uh doctor or, whatever, but I think he came back too soon from the first one, and that also contributed to this one. But I'm not the team, first of all, is not very concerned with it. They said it's less intense than the one he had back in May, I believe it was. And they're just watching it. But if I were the one calling the shots, I would say give him a month off, like a full month or more. Maybe a couple DH spots towards the end of that month, but don't put him out in the field. Um, just to kind of get him to fully get back to where he needs to be. And we've got Drake Baldwin starting a rehab assignment potentially this upcoming weekend. So that's another, strong bat coming back to the offense that can, be able to carry while Ronald is out. And meanwhile, we've got a plethora of outfielders that can cover him. We can put Yaz, Michael's out there, and Dubon if he's not doing short, Mateo, like we can throw all Kyle Farmer, we have a lot of depth. So it shouldn't be a problem to give him like a full break. But the problem is, I don't think that he would go for that. I think if he gets cleared medically, he's going to play as soon as he can.
I want to talk about Austin Riley a little bit because I know he's been talked about in Brave circles the past couple of years. The strikeouts are way up, the power numbers are down. Just what seems to be his issue, and I mean, the glove is fantastic. He never takes that, with him. He's
Yeah.
always fantastic. But what do you need to do? Do you feel like he needs to do to get going again? To really what's been the issue with him?
Well, Ryan, our friend Ryan from Hardcore Braves, he did a great breakdown on this because he's like the hitting guru of the Hardcore Braves. But there's a lot of tweaks that he could make, and another factor outside of approach itself that I think may be contributing, and I've had a lot of people comment on my post about Austin Riley saying the same thing. His personal hitting coach passed away 2 years ago, and if you
Oh,
notice, his performance in those 2 years has progressively declined. I think maybe the grief of that is, slightly coming into what's going
Sure.
on here, and also not having that coach as a resource anymore is could be contributing as well. I'm
Yeah.
That's purely speculation, but it is worth thinking about because
Yeah.
when you look at the stats from 25, 26, it's the numbers are there. But Austin Riley has a tendency to, you know, start a hot streak when we really need him to, and I fully believe that he's going to do that again this season. And he's had little glimpses of it here and there. It's not consistent, but it's not completely flat either. I see a lot of people saying stuff like he needs to be benched, he needs to be traded, he needs to move down to Gwinnett. All of these things are, one, not logistically possible, and two, not how, that one of the highest paid Braves players is going to be treated. um so we just need to be patient. I think he'll come around and he'll find
Yeah.
what he needs to find and be okay, especially towards the end of the season when it really matters.
do you think the He got hit by, I mean, the wrist injuries he's went through the last couple of years. Like you said, like
Yeah.
he got hit by a pitch a couple. Could that also be an effect, or it could be a mental thing, like what he's gone through? Because we know that he's been a great third baseman. He's considered one of the third basemen, especially, as a two-way player. Like, could that be
Yeah.
an issue as well?
Yeah, I definitely think the wrist injuries could play into it. And I also think that he is too in his head this season with what he's trying to accomplish. Like watching back the film, trying to see what he can change and stuff. I think he just needs to. This is probably like such a generic response, but like just get out of it and just focus on, don't try to over focus on every single movement that you're trying to make at the plate and just follow your instincts. And that's probably completely wrong, but that's how I feel, like it look like when you're watching him at bat, it looks like he is trying very hard to make all the right moves, and you just can't be in your head that much, at the plate.
Let's talk about Matt Olson here, man. He's been having a career year, I would say, or close
Yeah.
to it. I mean, I know he had a great year with the Athletics a few years ago, but he seems like he's back to that form, and he looks like he's an MVP candidate. Like, talk about what's worked for him this year. But like, if you look at his numbers, he has a 902 OPS, 19 home runs, 50 RBIs. I mean, everything across the board tells you like he's playing at an MVP level. But talk a bit about his season that's gone well for him.
Yeah, what's interesting with Matt is I don't know the stats on this, but there's been little moments where, left-handed pitchers are a weakness, and he is able to hit them very well and find the zone and just, hit it out of the park on pitches that you didn't think that he would be able to do that with. And I think that's one of his biggest strengths. Um yeah, I just I am loving watching him this year. I do think that he deserves to be in the MVP talks, but as of right now, he's fallen out of the top 5 poll, I guess, because he's, come down a little bit. But he was leading the league in WAR. I don't know if he still is. But he was leading in a couple of things. And yeah, Matt Olson is my favorite player. So, of course, I'm going to be very biased with this.
Right.
But a lot of people will say to me, like if I'm talking about Matt, like, oh, we miss Freddie. And I'm like, I don't. Have you pulled their stats up side by side
Right.
in StatHead? Because I don't.
Right, because like I know that short term we start talking about Freddie being missed, but long term was always Matt Olson. Alex always,
Yeah.
always has a plan with that, right? So
Yes, always has a plan. Yeah. And when all that happened back in, was it 2021, like right after the World Series, we instantly got Matt Olson. I'm pretty sure he like signed his contract on the plane to Atlanta.
yeah,
It was that fast. But when I saw that news, I was like, I mean, I'm not mad at it, but I'm not like super
yeah,
excited for it. But, after watching him play for a couple of seasons, I was like, yeah, this is our guy. Like, he is, to me, one of the faces of the franchise. Him, Ozzy, Austin, Acuna, like those guys, and now Drake Baldwin, they are our like super core. I love all of them.
I was in Toronto the other day, and a friend of mine, he's a big Braves fan. He sends me a tweet about the Braves bullpen. It has Robert Suarez, 0.63 ERA, Raziel Iglesias, 0.87 ERA, and then you got Mason Miller in between, but you got Dylan Dodd with a 1.17 ERA, and Didier Fuentes with a 1.17 ERA, all minimum like 20 plate appearances. But the Braves bullpen has been the best in baseball. So just talk about that and what success they've had heading with what they've done this season. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, it has been lethal. That Dylan Lee, Robert Suarez, Iglesias 1-2-3 punch. You basically have no chance against that. And I remember when we re-signed Iglesias in the offseason, a lot of people were not excited about that because in 2025 he did have a couple of issues. I mean, he cleaned it up towards the end of the season, but for a while there it was like, oh no, Iggy's closing. We're about to lose all this run insurance. But I knew that he would get back to his regular form, or at least I hoped, and he did. And then Fuentes getting moved to the pen was such a great idea on, I believe, Walt's part, because that's the, the old traditional way to give prospects experience. Like, yes, he might not be a starting pitcher right now. We've seen the data on that, but he is killer in the pen, and
Yeah.
he may even be more suited to be a closer in the future, and then having two of the strongest closers in the league, with like the most league saves, or the top of the league saves career wise, with Suarez and Iglesias. And Suarez is the setup guy, like that's just phenomenal. And Dylan Lee has made a complete 180 from where he started with us. And I'm so impressed with him right now. I'm the bullpen. A lot of people say that we should add another lefty bullpen reliever, but if it doesn't happen, I think we'll be okay, because the guys that we have right now are awesome. And J.R. Ritchie just got called back up to the bullpen. So I'm going to be really interested to see how he does in that role.
Who would you say has been the most integral part of that bullpen overall?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's probably a tie between Dylan Lee. I don't know. All three of those main guys are so important. But if I had to choose, probably Iggy, probably Iglesias. Just because, in the moments that matter, he's making sure that we are taking the win. And that's the most important thing at the end of the day.
Right. I like to talk about the rotation. I think that's probably the important part about what this team is all about, because that was an issue last year with all the injuries the Braves have gone to.
We went through like 32 pitchers. We like set the MLB record for how many starters we used.
Right, and with us being like Rob and I being Jays fans, we're going through that right now. We went through like 2 bullpen sessions. I think against you guys we had 1 bullpen session or so. Right, yeah, it was crazy. But talk about the rotation. How important it's been all of a sudden. Like, who would you say overall has been important for you guys? Because you got the Sales, you got the Striders, of course. Like Martin Perez, like what a story. I like who would have thought that for a pitcher
not
at
me.
his age. Yeah, I mean I've watched this guy throughout his career, and he's been a big player.
He's always solid.
Talk about I know he's been solid, but talk about the rotation. How important it's been so far.
Well, going back to my point on Jeremy Hefner, I think he has a lot of influence on Martin Perez's performance this season. And at the beginning of the season, if Martin Perez was starting a game, I'm like, I don't know about this. But now I see his name on the lineup, and I'm like, okay, cool. I think we're good here. The ones that I worry about the most are Grant Holmes, and then close second, Spencer Strider. But not so much Spencer Strider, because I think that he is showing signs of getting back to vintage Spencer Strider. And he definitely looks better than he did last year. And coming off of the injury and the surgery that he had, a lot of people expected him to come back and be the ace in 2025. And that's just not how that works. Like, you got to work through that for a season before you even start to get remotely close to that. And I think he's making the progress that he should right now. And I don't think we need to like give up on him just yet. And then Chris Sale obviously is Chris Sale, but for some reason when he's starting, our offense just decides to go to sleep. So we've, given this poor man, who's done amazing in all of his outings except for like 2. Like I think the past 4 outings he's had, we've lost those games because we've scored like 1 run. And it's very disappointing, because he deserves the win for his side of the performance, but offense just couldn't get it done.
Right.
And then let's see. I already talked about Bryce Elder. Bryce Elder, I think, is the breakout star of the season. He has just, I'm at a loss for words with how great and consistent he's been. And I love seeing that. And I do think, and a lot of Braves fans might not agree with me, but I think that he is, if not right now, definitely by September, October, going to be a postseason caliber pitcher. And he'll be able to handle that kind of, intensity. Because he's already shown a lot of, and he added, which pitch did he add? I want to say the cutter, but don't quote me on that. But that thing is killer. Like, he's refined it. It's just, it's chef's kiss. I am loving what I'm seeing from Bryce Elder. And Grant Holmes, there's a lot of talk about Grant Holmes and how he needs to be moved to the bullpen, but he's not bad. If you look at the overall, it's just a matter of once he gets through one round of the opposing lineup, that's where things start to go downhill. But usually after he gets through a couple of times, he can hold his own. Like, he may give up a couple of runs there in the middle, but he's not going to completely blow the game for us. So with that, we have to have offense producing in that time frame while he's going through the second and third round of the lineup, because we are going to see runs at that point. I don't know what Grant should do to work on that, but if, Hurts and Waldrop is going to be back probably before the All-Star break, if not right after, and if he's looking consistent enough, I would suggest that we throw him in Grant's spot and move Grant to the bullpen like we've done with Ronaldo Lopez, because it's worked out pretty well for Ronaldo Lopez to get those reps in the bullpen. And I think the same could be done for Grant. And if he seems to be progressing there, then we can try him to start again.
The starting pitching depth, I believe Hurston Waldrop's rehabbing. AJ Smith-Shawver's starting to throw bullpens, as you mentioned before the show. What's the depth like, even in AAA? You call Richie back; he's going to be in a bullpen role. But just mention some of the depth options that you guys have, and when you think guys could be back, and what their timelines are like, such as Waldrop and AJ.
Yeah. So Waldrop is going to be back the soonest, to my knowledge. Let's see, he's in Columbus. He was in Columbus today. He had his first start in Columbus. And before that, he was with the Florida League. So he's just working his way through the farm. I'd imagine he'd be, and this is just me, I'm not going off of any kind of official timeline, but I'd imagine he'd move through Columbus and then, up the ladder to Gwinnett within 3-4 week timeline, and then maybe we can get him back out to the bigs. And I'm really going to be watching it closely to see like how he's progressing, because if he comes back being the Hurts and Waldrop that we saw, towards the end of 2025, then that's lights out. Like, that's really gonna boost morale and help out this starting rotation. It's not struggling. We just need a little bit of a tweak, a little refresh,
Yeah.
And then AJ Smith-Shawver, from what I have heard, he's on a similar track as Hurts and Waldrop, which was surprising to me. I didn't think we'd see him back at all this season, but apparently he should also be returning on or around the All-Star break as well. I don't know if that's back to the ML or back to the bigs, or back to a rehab start, but either way, he's moving up. Now, Spencer Schwellenbach is the one that's questionable. I've heard a lot of different things. They're taking it really slow with him, which is good because we don't want to further irritate, or further create any more injury risk. But if I had to guess, I would say mid-August to mid-September is when we could potentially see him back. And if he looks good, then we've got a lineup of Chris Sale, Schwellenbach, Waldrop, Strider, and Bryce Elder. And then Perez waiting in the wings. And do we even need a starting pitcher at that point? That's the pivotal question, because the trade deadline is going to happen before these guys get back. So it's a really big what if situation. And I do think we should probably try to pursue a starting pitcher if we have the resources to do so. And it appears we do have payroll flexibility to, make a big trade. And we also, our prospects have vastly improved this year. They're one of the biggest MLB wide topics is our prospects. So we have prospect capital and we have capital. So we're in a good position, and we're also in a good position to where trades are not, we need this, right? This is a necessity because we have this hole. A trade would just be a luxury to upgrade an already good team. And that's not something we've had in a while.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
we're gonna talk about that later. I can't wait for those questions to come. But
Yeah.
I can't wait for that. But the next question I want to ask you: who would you say's been the X factors offensively and pitching wise? Because you always pick that one person. It's like we just didn't ever expected that person to become a big factor for the Braves, especially I think with Baldwin and Murphy being injured. But there's other contributing factors for the Braves, and then the pitching side. I mean, like you said, their bullpen's great, but overall, like who would you say on both spectrums have been big factors for the Braves?
Starting pitching wise, I would say, I honestly would say Bryce Elder, just because, as we talked about, the turnaround in his outings is astounding. And he's become a very valuable part of the rotation. And then offensively, that's a really tough call because everybody is doing so well. But I'd say it's probably a tie between Mauricio Dubon and Dom Smith, just because, when we brought both of those guys on, a lot of people were not expecting them to perform the way that they are. And they are a lot of the times outshining the top of the order and coming in clutch in times when we really need them to. And I love both of them. I love watching them play. I love hearing their backstories. Like they seem like genuinely great guys outside of baseball and great team members. I want both of them extended, and Jorge Mateo too. And I recently learned a lot of Jorge Mateo backstory, which I posted a video about the Jorge Mateo lore. And it's very interesting to see his journey from top prospect to being bounced around teams as a utility player. And now he's with us and he's being able to showcase himself again as the player that he originally started out as a prospect. Like he's getting back to that after 10 years. And it's such a interesting full circle moment to be able to witness. And I have a lot of respect for him, even more so than I had before learning his story, because he's still one of the fastest runners in
Yeah.
baseball. It's incredible to watch him run. So yeah, and these are supposed to be our bench guys, and they are just out here doing unthinkable things, unbelievable things in the best way. And that's one of the things that makes this 2026 team so fun to watch, is you never know who's going to have a night and what's going to happen, but you know that it's going to be great to watch.
I want to talk a bit about the coaching staff. You go out and you hire Walt Weiss to be your manager, and then you hire Jeremy Hefner, Anton Richardson, both from the Mets, by the way, your rival. I want to know how that feels to see them go down and you go up, by the way. But just talk about the job they've done this season, and in catapulting the Braves to the top of the standings where they are right now, and they're just rolling.
Yeah, I think both of them and Tommy Watkins have been pivotal to the change in this team's production. Antoine Richardson, and back to the Mets point. I was talking with a friend the other day about the Mets offseason moves, and I said they're investing their money in the wrong places, because we got their coaching staff because they wouldn't give them the contract they deserved. and look at them, sure, you've got Bobichette and whoever, all of these names after you gutted your core. Great idea, Cohen. Yeah, let's get rid of all the franchise players and see how that works. Don't even get me started on them, but they dug their own hole. They made their bed. But my point is, you should have put the money in the coaches who were obviously, doing something for you. But now we have them, we're benefiting from them because you decided to use your resources elsewhere. So maybe you need a different strategy, Mets. But yeah, I'm really impressed with the coaching staff. And I have seen guys who are not notoriously fast be able to produce doubles on what should have been a single. I'm pretty sure Matt Olson did that the other day, and I was like, that is not a Matt Olson thing to do. But I like it.
Well, how about Tim Hires? I know some people questioned him the year before after being from the Texas Rangers, but he seems like he's been a big factor with their offense. Like, how much credit do you give him?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I questioned him last year. I think last year was his first year with us, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But I think he changed his approach this year with the guys, and his ideology is definitely looking like it's meshing a lot better, especially with guys like Michael Harris. And then we also have Chipper Jones as a consultant to come on. And I know that he talked to Dom Smith and Mauricio Dubon. I don't know if it was during spring training or at the beginning of the season, but whatever he said to them has, helped a lot, and they took it to heart. So that's another great asset that we have, that Chipper is always there to help us with any kind of hitting problems we have. And I'm wondering if if Austin should seek out some consultation from him. I'm sure that Tim is working with Austin and other guys like Ha-Sung Kim, and these things take time, but I do have confidence in Tim Hires, and I like what I'm seeing from the offense, and we have to give him credit for that.
Well, you guys have the best record in baseball. Like, I mean, we look at the two teams right now, and I predicted this. I think before the season started, it's going to be a Braves Dodgers NLCS. But how strong is the NL this year in your opinion? Because we look at the teams right now. I mean, the Cubs are off to a fantastic start. They are free fall. I just don't understand what's going on. The Brewers are the Brewers, right? And then you got the Phillies. The Phillies are starting to play better after they fired Rob Johnson, and then another team that's a free fall is the Padres. They're like, how do you look at the NL perspective?
Well, no offense to the AL, but the NL is a lot more competitive this season.
It are.
And it's definitely like the Cardinals. The Cardinals are on like a 7-game win streak, which is I'm terrified of, because I don't know if you guys know the history of the Braves and the Cardinals in the postseason, but it's scary. I don't know what takes over them when they play us in the postseason, but it does not end out well for us. So I'm hoping we don't have to face them. We'll see. But it's interesting. And the Phillies love to boast about their coaching change and how they've done a complete turnaround, but it's slower now since we lost 2 games, but they were still, 9.5 games back from the division. But even with the 2 losses in Chicago, I don't see the Phillies closing that gap anytime soon, because, we are headed to New York to play the Mets this weekend.
Right.
So we're going to get that deficit even higher.
First time you're playing them too, right? First time.
Yeah, first time this season.
Wild.
I'm like, what is this? Why are we not playing interdivision games until June, mid-June? Okay, whatever. MLB, you make the schedule, not me. But we're facing them this weekend, and then we see them again at home the week of July 4th, which I think that actually I do prop the schedule makers for that, because that's a great July 4th series to go to, playing the Mets. But yeah, I definitely don't see the Mets catching up in our division. The last I checked the wild card, it was obviously Braves, Dodgers, I think Brewers after us, and then like the 3 wild card spots were the Cardinals, and this could have changed, but the Cardinals, maybe the Phillies. I don't know. I'd have to check. But those 3 spots, I feel like are going to move around a lot in the next couple of weeks, because you just don't know who's going to go on and the Cubs could potentially pull a Tigers move from last season and
Right.
jump themselves back up into a wild card spot. Like you just don't know what's going to happen. And then after the trade deadline, when everything's gotten moved around, then it's like basically starting over and seeing what's going to happen from there. So it's going to be interesting to watch. I don't think that the wild card spots are potentially up for grabs for any of the NL teams, but the couple that are the 5 or 6 that are moving around in and out of those spots, I'm definitely watching them to see what's going to happen there. And I don't see us moving down to a wild card spot, knock on wood.
Well, I just want to bring up one more team before Rob asks the next question. Is how surprised are you with the Washington Nationals? They're another team that's shocking me so far. Like I think they're a game over 500, and they're playing freedom baseball, like nothing to lose at this point, and they're
they
playing a
definitely
lot
are.
better. Yeah, like what are your thoughts about them?
I'm kind of not surprised, because I feel like they've been trying to get this core together for a little bit now. And I feel like the things with like James Wood and CJ Abrams are really starting to click, and their pitching needs some work. Their bullpen needs some work, but overall the offense is doing really well. And they really gave us a run for our money when we faced them in Washington and at home. In the past 2 series, we won both series, but it usually, when the Nats are coming to town, you're like, oh, okay, well, sweep. That was not the case, and yeah, I could see them potentially working hard enough and making some moves and getting themselves into a wild card spot, maybe, but they'd have to pass the Phillies. But they're not far behind the Phillies in the National League, or in the National League East, if I'm not mistaken.
They're 4.5 back. No, 2.5 back. Sorry. Yeah, 2.5 back. That's
2.5 back from the Phillies. How many back are the Phillies from the Braves? Is it 8.5 or is it 7?
8 right now.
8. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be back to 10.
I love it. This might be a bit of a crazy question to ask a team who's like rolling right now in first overall in baseball, but and we know baseball is a massive long season. So, what do you guys need to do, in your opinion, to stay consistent and continue playing like this the rest of the season?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the guys that are staying consistent obviously need to stay consistent, and then the key guys that aren't, so like Austin Riley, number 1 priority, needs to get himself back on track, which I think he will. Ha-Seong Kim is a big question mark for me. I wanted to give him a chance when he came back, because I felt like his rehab start was rushed. I felt like he's also putting too much pressure on himself to duplicate what he did for us at the end of the 2025 season, because he's only on a 1-year deal and he knows he's hitting free agency after this season. And the whole point of this contract was to be like a show me contract, to either get an extension from the Braves or get a better offer from another team. And that just didn't happen for him, because he's coming back in the middle of the season. And then not only is he coming back in the middle of the season, he's severely underperforming. So I feel like there's a lot of internal pressure for him. And that's why he's not doing so well, both at the plate and with his glove. You know, there's been a couple, it's not terrible, but there's been a couple of moments when I was like, what was that? Am I watching a T-ball game? You know, like what just happened there? But I did have hope for him to, I said this in one of my posts. I was like, I'm going to give Ha-Seong Kim until the end of June to see, you know, and then I'll reevaluate from there. But the thing is, the way that Walt manages his team, he's not going to keep giving Ha-Seong Kim starts at shortstop when he's not performing, because we have Mateo and Dubon. So Mateo's going to get the start at short if he's the one being consistent. And Ha-Seong Kim's not going to get the reps, but, you know, he's obviously going to get the reps behind the scenes. He's, you know, I'm sure that he's working really, really hard to try to figure out what's going on. So we'll see. I could, you know, and I'm going to do a post on this here shortly, but I'm going to talk about trade pieces. And at first, I did not think that Ha-Seong Kim could be used as a trade piece. But now I'm starting to lean towards maybe he could, because we have shortstop options, and we have good shortstop options at that.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of, do people want him? And he probably wouldn't be the center of a trade, but if we throw him in with some really good prospects, you know, we could land a really big name of you know, potentially. That's just my opinion. You know, I'm sure somebody will be like, "Nah, that's so delusional."
The thing is that we're going to get to that real soon, but there's a question between that that I want to ask, and this has to do with the president of baseball operations, Alex Anthopoulos. Obviously, you know, us being Blue Jays fans, he was with us, but you know,
Yeah.
there's a bit of an enigma of what Alex has done in the past, even though he won in 22, and some people think like, oh, you know, he makes this move, but he's learned his mistakes in the past, and it seems like he's more level-headed. He just wants to be more conservative, making the right moves at the right time. But
Yes.
how important of an offseason he had to build that success? Because look at the moves he's done: getting Robert Suarez, getting Martin Perez, who's been a factor, getting Dubon. A lot of people to talk about Jorge Mateo, Yastrzemski. Like, how
Mm-hmm.
important has of that offseason has been a big factor for where the Braves' success is at with
Yeah.
Alex doing that.
It has been one of the single most biggest contributing factors to the season success that we've had so far. And I just have to say, trading Nick Allen for Mauricio Dubon was the deal of the century, if you ask me. Nick Allen, I love Nick Allen. He's a great defender, but he was terrible offensively. And we cannot have a shortstop like that. We have to have someone that can do both. And Dubon can do both. Not only can he do both, he can play every single position on the field if needed, except for pitching. He can, if he has to, he can get behind the plate. You know, like it's his value just in everything that he can do, and the production that we're seeing is, you know, it's invaluable what we've gotten through him. And I remember covering all of this in the off season and announcing like our acquisitions. Like, yeah, the only one that people seem to be like, the majority were all in agreement, were excited about, was Robert Suarez, obviously, which he's been a great sign. But a lot of people were underwhelmed with Yaz. A lot of people were underwhelmed with the Mateo and the Dom Smith pickups. I'm pretty sure we grabbed both of them right before spring training or during spring training. And people were like, what is this? Why are we picking up these washed up guys? You know, like AA bargain bin shopping again. And I'm sure, you know, AA knew all along what the plan was going to be. Like, he saw something in them that other GMs didn't, and he capitalized on it. So those guys are on like $1 million a year deals. I'm pretty sure one of, maybe not. Is Mateo on a split contract? I don't know. But either way, dirt cheap for amazing elite talent.
Yeah.
And you can't beat that. So I'm interested to see what he's going to do at the deadline. And I think since he's had so much luck in the off season, that he may swing big. But we shall see.
Well, we know the trade rumor season has started. And is
Mm-hmm.
there any is there any names or anybody you'd like to see the Braves go after, or just anybody you've heard them link to?
Yeah, I've heard a couple of names. Obviously the biggest one is Tarek Skubal, and
Yeah.
to me it just doesn't feel reasonable to give up, because they're gonna want a haul. And also we'd have to take on the prorated salary, which is still a lot of money for 2 months.
Right.
And Boras is his agent, so he's not going to automatically go for Atlanta signing him to a long-term deal after getting traded to Atlanta. He's going to want him to hit free agency because he's trying to get maximum value out of him. And I just don't think that that's the way AA moves. If he's going to pick up a free agent, it's going to be someone who has the production that we need, or whatever type of, skill or position that we need, that also has a team friendly deal. um if it's a rental, it's going to be a cheap rental. It's not going to be a top of the line blockbuster rental. And I'm sure other teams like the Dodgers would love to, or even the Yankees would love to pick up Skubal in a trade, and they'd be willing to get their farm for it. But I just don't think that that's reasonable for us, given the value of our prospects right now, unless we can somehow convince him to sign for a longer term deal. But we also don't typically do, AA does not typically work with Boris clients for that reason, just because he's,
Yeah.
harder to work with. Hassan Kim was a Boris, or is a Boris client, which I was surprised that we even got that deal done, but we see how that's turning out. So, it just doesn't feel realistic to me. Would I love to have him? Absolutely. Hello, it's Tarek Skubal, but no, I don't see it panning out unless AA can work some kind of crazy magic and get it done. Now, you guys know that I have been on this train for a while, but I really, really think that, especially now with Ronald Acuna's second hamstring injury, Byron Buxton is the way to go.
Yeah.
Yes, we do need a starting pitcher, but we need another bat and potentially another outfielder as well. And the Twins have not looked great. They came into the season saying that they were not going to be selling because they wanted to be contenders, and they're not looking like contenders. They're not looking even close to being contenders to me. And reportedly Byron Buxton, he agreed to waiving his no trade clause for an Atlanta offer this past offseason. That's allegedly. I don't have any full confirmation on that, but ultimately the deal didn't work out. But we pursued him in the trade deadline last season. That also didn't work out. But the same thing happened with Chris Sale for 2 years before Alex landed that deal in 2023. So if that tells me anything based on Alex's patterns, he's been working Buxton for a while. And I think now is the time that he lands this deal, because Buxton is getting older. He wants to win. He is from Georgia. His favorite coach and most highly esteemed and respected coach is our third base coach. I'm pretty sure he has history with Mateo, like friendship wise or teammate wise. I'm not sure. But yeah, there's just so many different little factors that are like, he just fits. And I think he would be a great clubhouse fit. Like, can you imagine an outfield with Harris, Acuna healthy, and Buxton?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's untouchable. Like,
Yeah.
and I also, and a lot of people try, they'll comment on my stuff about Buxton and say like, oh, he's going to cost so much. I don't think he will. I don't think he will cost as much as people think that he will. And another thing is, he's on a team friendly deal. He's got 2 years left to control, $15 million a year. That's not bad for the production that you get
Right.
out of him. And then another point is, people are like, oh, the injury. He hasn't had the injury issues this year has been one of his better years. I think he's played the majority of the season so far, if I'm not mistaken. Knock on wood, I don't want to jinx that for him. And he's also one of the first players to, 20 home runs? Like, there's been 5 guys that have finally hit it. He's one of them. Like,
Yeah.
we need him. We need that energy over here. It's not going to cost 4 or 5 prospects like people think, in my opinion. Maybe we give him Ha-Sung Kim and a couple of pitching prospects and the deal's done. You never know. So, but I do think out of all of the rumors, that one is one of the ones that is probably one of the more realistic ones based on the things that I've seen in our needs and things like that. Even though starting pitcher does feel like maybe more of a priority, but I'm of the mindset that with these guys returning, they're going to be fine and we will still have a strong starting rotation. It's the production that we need to solidify and amplify with the trade deadline.
You mentioned about Buxton. I heard the same thing about Buxton, that they came to an agreement, but I think it had to do with if you remember, Derek Falvey was the president of baseball operations. He got let go, right? And I think that's what changed things. And I don't know what happened. The deal didn't go through. And I think Joe Ryan was another name that was also mentioned in the mix. I know that we sometimes talk, and you were talking about Joe Ryan and Bucks. It's like that's like the dream scenario. But like, could you see the Braves do it? I've heard stuff about potentially blockbuster deals this summer because we know that Scuba's name is going to be out there. That's without a doubt.
Yeah.
But we could see with the lockout looming, could you see the Braves do a blockbuster deal, like something like a Joe Ryan or Buxton, or any other deal like a Ezekiel Tovar and Zendit Teller, or somewhere to those lines? Like, could you see any potential blockbuster deals from Alex?
I'm hoping to. I don't know. I don't have full confidence in that. I feel like if there's anyone that could make it happen, it would be him. But I just don't know. We have to wait another month or so to see like really where these teams are at before things start really moving along with the trade stuff. But it just depends. And going back to Scooball, the Tigers are all over the PR talking about, oh, we're not moving him, like he's staying. And I'm like, yeah. You're just positioning yourself. You're just trying to get a haul for a 2-month guy. We can see right through you with your little bus trolley posting about it and stuff, like I don't pay attention to all that. And I tried to like do a whole little trade tutorial breakdown for people. Like, don't believe everything you read. Jeff Passan saying, or Jeff Passan saying that Scooball should go to Atlanta does not mean we're connected, like, because there's just so much stuff out there and people take it at face value. And you cannot take any of those articles at face value because they're all written strategically for the team they're writing it about to get that leverage, But I mean, a Joe Ryan, Byron Buxton blockbuster trade would be the dream because that's 2 birds with 1 stone. Those are the 2 things that we need from one team. It's just a matter of what we'd have to give up. But at this point, we have the prospect capital to the point where if we gave up a handful of prospects, we would not be selling off the farm, and we're going to replace them, turn around and replace them in the draft. And I really want to go after Drew Burris. I know he's ranked 7th right now, and we've got the 9th pick. So I don't know how well that would work out, but either way, like we can, the development in all levels of the minor leagues has been extraordinary this year, and we're positioning ourselves to be one of the top minor league systems in the league, which we haven't seen in years. So that gives us a lot of advantage and a lot of flexibility when it comes to trades and calling people up when needed and things like that.
Is there a player other than Byron Buxton that you could see yourselves going after that could be a fit to help the Braves?
Yes, I like Joe Adele from the Angels. I also would be willing to do a reunion with Jorge Soler, but he's only a DH, so I don't know how well he would fit because we have Dom Smith and we have Drake Baldwin returning, which are our typical DH guys, and potentially Sean Murphy towards the end of the season. So there's our DH position filled right there. But things could change. We could have Soler back and get him another ring with us, and and I love Soler. I always have. When he came back in 2024, I was going to as many games as I can just to see him play. And that little fight that broke out at the beginning of the season, I was like, oh my gosh, this is not the Soler I know and love. But anyway, there was a couple of names. I don't feel like the Rockies are actually going to be sellers
You don't
this
think so, huh?
season. No, despite what the media is putting out, I don't think they will. But I would love Mickey Moniak. He looks great. And then there's a couple other names that I have like a whole list of names because people want me to like go through and do deep dives. Pitcher wise, I really like Seth Lugo. I think he's exactly what AA would try to go for, like a veteran arm. He's not looking like an ace necessarily this season, but he also hasn't worked with Jeremy Hefner yet. So we have to take those kinds of things into consideration. And then also Waka from the Royals as well. A lot of people have mentioned
Aroldis Chapman?
Aroldis Chapman, yeah. That bullpen would be unstoppable if we added him. But again, he is another very expensive rental.
That's right.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't think we would go for that unless he'd be willing to sign a longer deal, which I think is more of a possibility with him than it is with Scooball. And then we'd have 3 closers, which would be good because you never know what's going to happen injury wise. If Iglesias is down, then cool, we'll throw in Chapman. If Suarez is down, then Iglesias can be the setup. Chapman can be the closer. That kind of thing in the postseason is crucial. So adding him would be amazing if it wasn't going to cost us a haul. And then I can't remember all of these names. I have so many in my head and they're just escaping me, but there's a lot of potential out there, and I really think that we are going to be looking in the American League primarily because the American League is very much so up for grabs, and a lot of these teams, some of them feel like they have a chance to compete right now, and some of them are still trying to figure it out. So we just have to keep an eye on them, like teams like the Orioles, the Giants, the Twins, obviously, the Royals, and just see
Boston.
yeah, just see like where Boston for sure. Just see like where they're at towards the end of the month, and then start doing our due diligence and looking around and seeing what people are willing to do and go from there. But American League, I think we will be looking into first. There's been a lot of chatter that Sandy
Alcantara.
Yes, I don't want to say his last name wrong. That's why I did. That's why I hesitated.
Alcantara,
but from Miami could potentially get moved. But he's killer. I just don't think we would be doing an interdivision trade. People have also mentioned CJ Abrams to me. I don't see that happening either, just because it's interdivision. But and Freddie Peralta too. I don't think we would.
Yeah, I don't see that.
And I also don't think the Mets would trade Freddie Peralta because I feel like they're under this delusional impression that they can bounce back, and they're not gonna. They might even try to buy more, knowing them. I mean, that feels on brand for me that they try to buy more at the deadline and see what they can do with that.
Let me give you two names up there, and I've heard
Okay.
one of them. And there's two people that told, a couple people have told us, and I think Ken's told Rob, but I've heard more than just one. And Riley Green's name's been out there recently, and he's not under what's that? He's under control
It's
till
under ARB until
2029.
29. Yeah.
2029, and
Yeah.
I know Alex is all about term. We know
Yes.
this. He loves term. Like our team, they're about term too. And it seems like there's very similar models with both our franchises, right?
Mm-hmm.
And another name I think is going to be a surprise name, who I think is going to get traded, is Reed Detmers. And he has been pitching really well lately. And
Yeah.
when you look at left-handed pitching, and if you're looking a guy with tremendous upside, I think he's going to be a hot commodity. And could you see either one of them? Because the GM of the Angels used to be the assistant GM of the Braves, who always do deals, is Perry Manassian, right?
Yeah.
And could you see both of those? He did. You mentioned about Adele, and he could get traded, and we could ask ourselves, could you see a monster blockbuster and doing favors with the Angels, with the Braves and the Angels doing Adele and Detmers as part of the deal, knowing
Yeah.
where the Braves stand?
Well, according to Jim, is it Jim?
Bowden.
Yeah, Jim Bowden. I always
Oh
get
my.
him and our writer Mark Bowman's names mixed up. Yeah, Jim Bowden says that Devers is not getting moved, or that's he's of that mind. But we do need, if there's one thing we need, it is a left-handed pitcher, whether it's a starter or a reliever. We need to add more lefties. Like that is key to strengthening the pitching staff. And I think that would be a great one to go after. And historically, the Angels have been very, very good trade partners for us.
Right.
So, I mean, I think if they are open to moving anyone, then we will definitely be in talks with them to see what we can make happen. And I would love to have a deal where we have both of those guys moved over to the Braves for sure. And I feel like that would be, like the equivalent of a blockbuster trade,
Oh
you
yeah.
know.
With
But,
term.
yes, with the team friendly long term or longish term. Yeah. We
Yeah.
just want to stay away from rentals. I am so sick of the rentals. But then again, we got a lot of rentals in 2021 and we won the World Series with them.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I wanted to remind Braves fans of recently is we have to be prepared that we're not going to break the internet. And a lot of people were underwhelmed with, Jock Peterson, Jorge Soler, Adam Duvall, Eddie Rosario when we picked them up at the deadline in 2021. But all four of those guys were pivotal to the World Series win. So we just have to, I don't want to sound, like cliche, but we just have to let AA cook because he knows what he's doing. We don't, everybody, I think the majority of fans just want to see a big name. And a big name is not necessarily what you need to win. There's more to it. There's more levels and layers to that. So yes, a big name would be fun, but I think, overall we're going to add what we need, whether it's a big name or not.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. But to wrap this up, I think this is a little bit of a sentimental topic to talk about. And there's three icons that was part of this Brave franchise. That was Ted Turner,
Yeah.
Bobby Cox, and Bob Horner, which was very unfortunate because Ted Turner was the model of where Braves brand of baseball was at, especially with TBS baseball, and how much of an icon he was as an owner. Bobby Cox, I mean, one of the best managers of all time. He also did the Blue Jays as well, but I mean,
Yeah.
he's taken that team to win 14 straight division. I mean, he's one of the best in the business. And then Bob Horner, I mean, Braves that legend just passed away. Who would have thought that three Braves icons would all pass away in one season? Like, talk a bit about that and how important are they to
Yeah.
the
It
franchise?
was so bizarre because they all, it all happened within like a month's time frame, if not less. And I was like, this is crazy and also so sad because, if it wasn't for Ted Turner, the Braves would not have become America's team through TBS. I have followers that live in California, Minnesota, like you name it, people that have been lifelong Braves fans because of TBS. And we owe all of that to Ted Turner. And he even, with Bob Horner, he got people still watching the games during like very lean seasons because of him. And Bobby Cox, became the model manager for other organizations. So basically, like, especially with Bobby Cox and Ted Turner, these two guys kind of set the blueprint for the Braves, from becoming like a regional team to a national
Yeah.
brand, and a national brand that other teams want to model themselves after. They were all so pivotal to our progress and our success, and it's so sad still to think about that, they're gone and they're not here to witness this amazing season anymore. But yeah, I have so much respect for them. I grew up going to Turner Field, and I want to say that I did see a couple of games that Bobby Cox managed as a child, but I was very young. But my parents grew up with Bobby Cox's team and Bob Horner, and they have a lot of, sentimental attachment to those guys and Ted Turner as well. So yeah, I mean, I think it affected Braves country as a whole a lot. And I believe it was the Dodgers we were playing when Ted Turner and Bobby Cox passed. So they did a very respectable, very, very classy, like memorandum moment of silent thing for them at Dodger Stadium, which mad respect to them for that. But they also recognize that those guys are not just Braves historical legends. They are MLB historical legends. And I think
Of course.
that played into that a lot too. But yeah, it was sad. And I was just at a game last week, and people were still laying flowers at Bobby Cox's statue. Like, he had such an impact on the
Yeah.
fans, the team, the
Yeah.
organization, everything.
Yeah, of course. With Bobby Cox for us, even as Jays fans, like we weren't born at that time, but we were like infants, you could say, Rob and I.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he was, I mean, he was the first manager in our franchise to win the division, like, ever. So I mean, and
Yeah.
he's only managed two franchises, the Braves and the Jays. That's it. And he's been a legend, not only just for our teams but throughout baseball. How important he is, like
Mm-hmm.
how much of a, and how many times he's been ejected.
Yes. Yes.
Like
Yes. I love that about he set that record, right? For, is it just Braves franchise history with the most ejections? But who gives me, or makes me feel like has a lot of characteristics of Bobby Cox? Walt Weiss. I mean, he's fiery. He's not getting himself ejected from games, but he stands up for his players, and he makes these moves based on what he thinks is right, not based on what a contract says, not based on the clubhouse politics. He's making moves to win, and that reminds me a lot of Bobby Cox. And I'm just so impressed with Walt Weiss. And he technically does come from like the Bobby Cox family tree, because
right,
he worked under Brian Snicker, who worked under Bobby Cox, and
Bobby Cox.
so on and so forth. Yeah. But yeah, Bobby Cox is truly a legend, always will be.
No, always. And that was fun. And we enjoyed this episode. And this will be out this week. And we appreciate you once again. And let's see if we aim higher, because right now it's between you and Ken for the top streamers. And, so it's awesome to have both of you, both you and Ken. I mean,
Yeah,
during
me and Ken make a great team. I love working with him at Hardcore. He's a lot of fun and very knowledgeable. Him and Ryan both, and
yeah,
everybody else on the team. It's great.
yeah. Shout out to them for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I got to meet Ryan for the first time doing the episode. He's really cool, dude. I like
Yeah.
him a lot. Got along with him and Ken really well. But yeah, thanks for coming. This is fun.
Yeah,
Had a
absolutely.
great time.
Thanks for having me, you guys. It was a blast.
Yeah. You know the one guy that hasn't been on, and I talked. I'm friends with him too. Is Ben Weaver? It's like I know he does TikTok videos too, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to Ben too. We're gonna get you back here, Ben. So if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, we're gonna get you here too. So we'll get you here. But once again, where can they find you in social media and everywhere else?
So if you want the latest episodes of the Chop House Tea, TikTok is where it's at. It's going to be at Erin on Deck. Also, Instagram is going to see it first at Erin on Deck. And then if you want Chop House Tea episodes with a little bit of like my personal quick thoughts and like live game tweets, then go to X, Erin on Deck as well.
Awesome. Yeah, we loved having you. It was fun. Getting to talk about your team and it's just a joy having you on. So we appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do this again in a few months or whenever we can. I mean,
Yeah.
if it gets hot and
Yeah,
heavy,
for sure.
I'll keep you in touch with it. But we'll place a description below where you can find Erin on Deck and her great contact. But till next time, take care. Be kind to each other. Signing off from the Sports Avenue Twisted podcast on Thursday, June 11th, 2026.
Sports Avenue Twisted Podcast. Rob and Rocky talks everything sports.